Hi, everybody. I'm Dan McDermott. Welcome to McDermott Report. Joining me from New York is Alan. Welcome, Alan. Uh, there's Alan. And also Michael Ellis. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hi, Dan. It's nice to be back with you.
Good to have you. And my shot is messed up. I'm not sure why. I'll have to figure that one out. All right. So, first up, we have a new Android update. Oh, Michael, we got to introduce your buddy.
Ah, this is my friend David Becker. I'm in his apartment in Regensburg, Germany, and I'm visiting him. This is the guy that saved my life a couple years ago when my appendix burst in Germany.
Well, thank you for doing that. Done your civic duty. And your payment was, you said, just buy me a lot of beer from now on, was
Right,
the
exactly.
agreement.
I want you to ask him about the Facebook ruling in Germany
Yeah.
when that topic comes up.
Are y'all going to be around long enough, or do you want us to bump that up?
I think it's okay. It's not too far down the list.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go get to it then. The first thing here is I saw this post via Alan, and it looks like Android update 7.0.0 is rolling out. Alan, what's the deal with this?
Deal with this is that basically they fixed 69 bugs, 14 accessibility issues.
Okay, Alan, your volume, your thing is crapped out. Hang on. This is going to be a disaster. Alan, we can't hear you. All right, let me try this here. I'm supposed to. This is a secret message here that I'm supposed to use. Um, hey, Alan, are you there now?
No.
Wow, this is a disaster. This is really bad. He's gonna reseed his thing.
Basically, they changed a bunch of shit. It still works as bad as it ever did, but it doesn't seem to work as bad.
What were you using for audio before? Oh, okay, first of all, your outgoing volume is very low. If there's any way you could raise that, and if there's a, do you what were you using before you were using that?
I was using shit before,
Well,
and I'm lower than I was before.
it's low. It's pretty low.
Fuck this. Talk to Mike.
Okay. So, Mike, how are things in Germany? What are you doing in
Well,
Germany?
good. Good. What'd you say?
What are you doing in Germany?
I'm working in Germany right now, which people might know if they were tuned in, what, 6 months ago, the last time I was on the show, I think.
Well,
Um,
you go from place to place.
I do, but this 12-month period I'm spending in Germany.
And what are you doing in Germany?
I'm doing software implementation projects for manufacturing companies here.
Okay.
I own a company that does that in the US, and I have friends in Germany that own similar companies. So they needed more help, and I came over to work with their customers for a year
Was there any kind of
to work.
language issue?
Oh yeah, there's yes, it's a huge language issue. Actually, one of my reasons for wanting to do it was to improve my commercial proficiency in German. So I speak German socially quite well, but I wanted to speak commercially and be proficient in a professional setting. So this is my reason for coming for a year and doing this. And the first 3 months were absolutely horrible. I mean, by horrible, I mean extremely difficult. Difficult to communicate and be understood and to understand. Turns out that part of the problem was being understood was not so much of a problem because I speak classically High German, and because that's what I always learned in school. But everyone in my part of the country now speaks Badisch or Schwäbisch, which are dialects, and they're very strong dialects, and they're practically unintelligible to people who speak High German.
Even to a German.
Yes,
So it's like Northern England versus Southern England. They're very, very different.
I guess so. Yeah, very, very different.
I wonder why we don't
Um,
have. I mean, we could basically understand anyone from any of the 50 states in the United States, and we're a much
Pretty
larger
much.
country.
I'm sorry, Dan. No.
I can
Have
barely
you
hear
ever
you,
have
Alan.
you
Your
ever
volume's
put
really
somebody
low.
from Boston? Have you ever put somebody from Boston and somebody
Yeah.
from Alabama in the same room together?
Yeah, well, my dad is from Worcester, so I don't see any problem understanding people from Boston.
I also agree that the difference that we have in the United States is really one of accents and not so much of dialects. And that's a distinction that's worth noting. In Germany, the accents are different for sure, but when the people from the rural part of southwestern Germany speak German, their German is not the same as High German spoken in Hanover, for example. And the people really have a very hard time understanding each other.
By dialect versus accent, like in the U.S., if one person says I want a Coke generically, and someone in New England might say soda, and someone in Ohio might say pop, like different words for things, or
Yes, but I mean, I think everyone in the whole country understands all three of those options. So that is a slight dialect change, but I think the most analogous thing we have to offer in the United States is Creole compared to English.
oh yeah, I have no clue about Creole.
So people who speak Creole, they're definitely American and they can understand people who speak English, but they cannot be understood by the normal person coming from the rest of the country.
Gotcha.
Because those are almost separate languages. They're so different.
Interesting. And there you are in the midst of it.
That's what I do every day.
So you sound more like the people upstairs in Downton Abbey than the downstairs cooks.
I'm
But
afraid that's
but
true.
your friend there and his gang are the downstairs cook speaking ones, and so you're
Yeah,
having
he's from Bayern, from Bavaria,
okay.
which is where we are. So we're in Regensburg, which is one of the primary cities of Bayern,
And I hope you have
Bavaria.
not foolishly attempted a drinking match with this gentleman,
No,
because he will win.
he's on a pace about twice my rate. So I'm about halfway through my third beer, and he's on his fifth, I think, maybe sixth beer. I'm gonna cheers.
Cheer- Well, it should be a pretty good show tonight. Um,
Normally, I'm drinking scotch instead of during these or wine during these shows.
All right. So anyway, all right. So Alan, I understand there's some new Android stuff.
No,
7.0.0.
Let's represent that correctly. It's new Android stuff for Google Plus, and let's also represent that it's not so much that it's new; it's that they fixed a whole lot of things so that it isn't quite as crappy as it was before, but it's still crappy.
Well, that sounds great.
And the fact that they gave it version number 7.0.0 just screams that they're blazing ahead with all sorts of pioneering, innovative crap.
Okay. All right. Well, there we have our detailed review of Android 7.0.0. It's more 0 than 7. All right, next is Google Cardboard gets a big upgrade with realistic 3D audio. Alan's going to explain this. He's also going to explain the difference between an API and an SDK and tell us what this involves.
I am. I'd like to thank you, Dan, for letting me know that I'm going to be doing this more than a few seconds before I need to. I really appreciate that.
Well, you have all the time for the first half of the topic,
Which I'm also going to be talking about, apparently. So Dan here is featured with his R2D2 cardboard.
Yes, I am.
How are you enjoying it, Dan?
Well, I haven't played with it a lot because I did on Christmas, and then it's cool, but I actually forgot about it. There's a lot of options.
Now, Dan, as we all know, one of the neat things about cardboard is that it presents stereo vision, which humans have been doing for centuries now. But stereo vision in a cardboard box is pretty neat. One of the things that needs to go with it, though, is stereo audio.
Well, they're already. I was going to ask you about this. I noticed that in some of these things already, something will only be in the left speaker, and then as you move around, it'll switch to the right speaker. So there's already some sort of 3D thing going on. What is different about this?
What's different is that the cardboard libraries now provide direct support for it.
Okay, as opposed to the two, just editing the normal two audio channels like you would when
Right.
creating a
So
song.
really what kind of they've done here is it's really trying to make it so that the developer can easily present where an audio is coming from and how loud it is at its origin point and where you are in relation to that audio.
I'm going to periodically ask you the same question. How is this going to compare or be a threat to Oculus? Because I guess Oculus requires that I hook it up to a PC.
Yes. So let's look at the two specific differences here. Cardboard is $25 plus your smartphone.
If you get a fancy one, it's $25.
Let's put it this way. In the airport this week, I saw it in a bookstore being sold for $25. So that's an airport price bookstore price. So $25 plus your smartphone. It's wireless, it's mobile, it's easy to deal with. Oculus is larger. It doesn't require your smartphone, but it does require being tethered to your PC. And when we say your PC, we mean a very high-powered device that has some really, really good graphic card in it, because it needs all of that to drive the really, really good graphics. I think it's safe to say that Oculus is going to be higher resolution. It's going to be better performance. But for most people, your smartphone is going to do some really, really cool stuff using a $25 cardboard versus a $600 Oculus plus whatever you're going to need to pay to buy a PC.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, I think Oculus is going to be nice. I guess it's going to be what, 400 or 500 bucks, but you got to have a computer. I wonder if this is like a beta VHS thing where even though Oculus is arguably better, Cardboard's going to kick their ass because it's $15 to $25 and it requires hardware that everyone has with them all the time versus a high-end PC.
Here's the beauty of it is that in the long run, it'll start turning into a common set of APIs. And this is where I guess I get to explain what an API versus an SDK is. An API are a set of functions. They're basically the interface between your program and everything else. So, you know, if I have this generic box, which is doing stuff, it exposes specific points where my program can talk to the box. Those specific points are known as the API. An SDK is usually much bigger. SDK stands for Software Developer Kit. And it doesn't include, it includes an API, but also includes some other tools usually that help you design things for that specific device. So these other things may include various graphic editors. They may include the compiler that's necessary to create the software to put it on the box, because your box and your computer may have two completely different architectures. So the SDK is what helps you build a program. The API is the specification for how your program talks to something else.
All right, awesome.
Very nice description, Alan. That's exactly right. I mean, not that I'm questioning that you would say it right. I'm just complimenting the way you described it.
Thank you, Michael. I do, you know, I do try to help people understand all of the buzzwords, all of the complicated stuff. That's one of the things that I like to do. So I'm glad if it does help people understand this random, you know, jargon shit that we are always tossing around.
Okay, so I want to just let our folks know that I screwed up and the audio's fixed on their end. It was an issue on my mixing board. I screwed that up, so I apologize. So they're normal volume now. They were Instead of at 12 o'clock, they were at 9 o'clock. But now it's fixed. I can still blame Alan somehow. I'll figure it out. Give me a moment, and I'll make it his fault. And also, this should be pretty epic because it's 3 a.m. almost in Germany. So I'm looking forward to contributions from Mike and his associate. All right, so I'll be looking forward to the cardboard thing. I still think I get a little nauseous when using it for any period of time. I think that will be compounded with the Rift because of the moving your neck versus your torso limitation with the.
Well, it depends. Probably it might be compensated a little bit on the Oculus side because they probably have slightly better graphics that refresh a lot faster. At least I hope they would refresh a lot faster at higher resolution. So that may be less disorienting than your phone, which may flicker a little bit and may not respond as quickly. Hopefully, the Oculus will be responsive, far more responsive than your phone is. But it's going to depend on specific people.
Okay. All right. So next is it's a little easier to organize your Google Drive.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I didn't propose this, so when I read it, I was surprised that I missed it. This is a clever set of tools that Google has introduced on Google Drive that try to help you place documents in Drive in other locations, and particularly documents that people have shared with you, letting you organize them a little bit easier. I think some of this is compensation for messing up how they were handled previously. And we'll see where it goes. Michael, have you had a chance to play with these new changes on Drive yet?
I actually have not played with the new changes yet, but I did read about them, and this strikes me as another kind of ho-hum enhancement that isn't much of an enhancement. Because honestly, what happens is they change the user interface every time they do an update, and you lose the function you used to have, and you have to then hunt around on the internet to find out somebody that's cracked the code and tell you how to do it again, what you used to be able to do, which is exactly what they're doing this time. You can do now, again, what you used to be able to do, and now they're announcing something that tells you how to do it. Thank you for telling me, again, the feature you stole from me, hid from me, and now you're just barely opening the kimono enough to remind me that the function still exists.
The opening of the kimono.
And it's not at all the feature we really need in terms of making search for large volumes of files in Google Drive. That's not what we needed. What we really need is the ability to search within a file structure. So if we're converting from Windows to Google Drive, as I have done, search is generic across all the entire Google Drive structure, and I can't narrow the search to any tree structure. So I took everything off my old computer systems and put them in a folder, and all of the old tree structure is still there from Windows. And there are hundreds, no, thousands of files there in Word, in Excel, in PowerPoint, and I need to convert those. But I need to search for them. Well, the search tool searches across everything that's been already converted in Google Docs formats and everything that's in old Microsoft Office formats. And there is no way to separate the two when you're searching. We need to be able to search by folder structure also. That will make a meaningful difference in organizing our Drive files.
All right, so they got a way to go.
They got a long way to go.
They just, as we peek into the kimono. All right, next, Google X has a new logo and a new plan to turn moonshots into actual businesses. I read this. It's interesting. It's semi-interesting, and I guess it almost sounds like they're going to try to impose some discipline on the whole process. Alan,
I'm sorry, I was distracted by an incoming message. It sounds like they are not so much imposing more discipline, but one of the things that Google X, that Astro Teller had said from the beginning, was that they were going to fail fast. So they were going to bring up proposals, do a quick test, see if there's potential, and then keep iterating quickly. And if at any point they started thinking that this was a bad idea, they were going to bail. And it sounds like what they were realizing was they weren't bailing fast enough. So they're now going to try to bail faster. So along with getting their new name, which is quite a name, they're going to try to impose more discipline on their procedures that they had in place.
Is that Google X that we're talking about?
Well, it was the company formerly known as Google X.
Okay, what's
Now
the
be
new
known
now?
as X.
It's now called Prince again.
Called what?
Prince again. It's called Prince again. Just kidding.
Dan's trying to make it funny.
Failing.
Oh, okay. Oh, Prince. I get it now. Okay. It's now called Prince. It's no longer formerly called Prince. It's now again called Prince.
God, I'm dying 1,000 deaths.
When your jokes from Virginia have to be explained by a Hoosier out of Germany, you've gone wrong somehow.
Oh my God. There's a humor latency here. All right. So anyway, that happened. All right. So X is X all over again. All right. Zeiss. The headline here is kind of trolling here, but apparently Zeiss has these smart glass, and it's not there yet, but it's definitely not a Google Glass competitor. It's in early stages, but instead of having this Borg-like contraption with the glasses, it's using I forget what's the word, not tungsten, Fresnel built into the glass so that it can, I guess, shoot an image onto your eyeball, which is kind of concerning. And instead of having
what do you think the monitor in front of you is doing right now?
Oh, okay.
So the headline was incredibly trolling and massively inaccurate.
Yep.
Zeiss basically has developed a new display technology, not a new smart glass, but they've developed a new display technology, which may eventually, once they actually refine it a lot, be able to do some overlay displays. It's certainly progress. I think this is really cool if what they're doing is real, but there are some severe limitations in what's there right now. And it's not like there aren't other technologies that display directly on the glass itself. So I think this is cool. I think I look forward to seeing where this technology goes, but I imagine we are still quite a few years away from this technology making it into a head wearable system.
Alan, can I chime in here? I didn't quite understand what they were describing as the change or the difference in the fundamental optical technology. So that confused me a bit. But the look of the glasses per se, they didn't look more stylish to me. I've commented on a post about that. That in my view, the Google Glass solution looks a bit more futuristic, which some people would say is not as good. But the Zeiss glasses, they look boxy and sort of 1950s-ish, and maybe that's stylish today. I don't know.
I think that is stylish today, but also keep in mind that Zeiss are extremely well known for their design of glass, not for their design of eyewear.
Okay.
So the big deal here isn't so much that they have designed something that inherently looks better. It's that they've designed a technology that eliminates the thing sticking out in front of your eye. Which
right.
I can understand people saying that will inherently look better. And I think it's important to note that their design does come with some drawbacks right now. It's not as crisp and clear.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot more display issues.
Well, the article seemed to give rise to, or give give me the understanding that there were still a lot of technical issues that made the product essentially unusable in its current form.
That was my read of it too, even though the headline makes it sound otherwise.
The headline definitely made it sound like they've beaten Google Glass. And when I read the article, I was like, well, they haven't even made it work yet. You can't wear the things and see clearly. That's not anywhere close to what I understand Google Glass to be.
Right. I mean, I think what the article was really just, what the headline was really just trying to say was, hey, somebody has found a way to display without this thing sticking out in front. And to be honest, it's not the first one to do so.
Okay, that I didn't know, but I do think that's desirable generally.
It is. I can understand why it's considered a good design feature. I'm not going to dispute that. I will point out that the technologies that do that right now have some trade-offs. For example, HoloLens does that sort of thing right now. It displays it directly on the glass.
Right.
It has a design limitation that it's a very, very narrow field of vision.
So without trying to plug your book per se, would there be a new release of your publication that would cover some of the technological differences between these two or these varying solutions?
Well, again, right now, this isn't a product, so I'm not going to try to peddle a book on a non-product. Yeah,
it's a moving target also, right? Until it becomes a real product, it's definitely moving.
Right. I mean, what Zeiss is offering isn't a product; it's a component of a product. And they were peddling it at CES, trying to find somebody who would manufacture the rest of it.
The eyewear, actually, right?
Right. You know, the
optics, and they're looking for someone to make the eyewear.
Right. Like I said, there are other companies that are doing these sorts of things right now. The big competitor is a company called Recon. I think it's Recon. And they're doing some interesting stuff. But again, it's slightly different than what Glass's approach was. You know, go ahead.
I would expect it by now to see somebody like Ray-Ban jump into this. I mean, it seems like Ray-Ban would be a natural partner with Zeiss, since Ray-Ban knows nothing about optics and Zeiss knows everything about optics.
But Ray-Ban also knows nothing about computers.
Right, but maybe they don't need to. Oh, I guess it's still a component that's needed. Right.
Alan, is Glass open source or proprietary? I mean, can anyone make a Glass competitor?
Well, there are the answer. There are people who have made things that are very similar to Glass. Glass was built on top of Android. It's got some closed source components to it, and certainly the hardware is closed hardware. But there was nothing secret about the hardware. People were opening it up. All of the components that we're using were sourced from elsewhere. There was not a lot that was revolutionary about Glass's hardware design. Evolutionary, yes, but not revolutionary.
Okay, so
what is Michael holding up to the screen right now? I almost don't want to know.
Go ahead and say something, Michael. Let me see if I can click them. Is that snow?
A snowball.
Wow.
We had snow today. Apparently plenty of snow. Damn, that's cold. Here, get rid of this.
Okay. Yeah. See, I promised our viewers that our German set would be pretty cool as the show advanced.
You better mute me again.
That's awesome. I remember on the State of the Union, it was the dusting of snow outside, and someone said if, with a little patience and effort, the president could literally bring a snowball into the halls of Congress. All right. So while they engage in,
so he could say something like, "I'll sign that bill when hell freezes over,"
and then toss it right at Ryan, right in Ryan's crotch.
Right.
Here you go, buddy. All right, so that happened. All right, next is this social app called Stolen shuts down. I never downloaded it. I would see in my Twitter feed people stealing so-and-so's Twitter name, and I just thought it was sort of a silly, not something that would have drawn my interest, so I never downloaded it. And then I guess some people viewed it as harassment, including one congresswoman who wrote a letter to Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, and to the CEO of Twitter. And she was not amused. And so now they have shut the app down, and everyone can get a refund. Had you any of you guys seen anybody using this or heard about this before?
I had never heard of it until I read this review, and after reading this review, I have to wonder why some people ever came up with the idea of treating other people as trading cards.
Kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like when you get those irritating invitations to join a game on Facebook, and now you can cut them off, but on a per game basis. You can't just say I don't want any game notifications. You've got to go to each one. And in this case, it's sort of the same thing, but people would naturally want to know if someone put at your name on Twitter, you want to know someone's talking about you, right? So there was kind of no way to avoid this, because it would post on Twitter, so-and-so just got Alan Furstenberg or Dan McDermott, just stole the name. And then you're like drawn into this thing that you have no interest in, but you're like, do I have to defend my honor here? What the hell's going on? So anyway. All right, so that happened. They've enjoyed their 10 minutes of fame or infamy. All right, next is a German court calls Facebook's Find a Friend function illegal. And I think we're going to go to Frosty the Snowman on this one. I guess the read here is that it would search your email and send your contacts list. It would ask you if you could do this, and then it would actually generate an email from Facebook to anybody who was in your email contacts that Facebook didn't see as an existing Facebook user, and it would say, Michael Ellis has invited you to connect with him or join him on Facebook. If you have, to join, click here, which is very similar to what LinkedIn does, and I hate that. Michael, you said you had some thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I asked my friend if he knew anything, but he said he's really not informed on the subject now. So even though he's German, that's not something that he's paid attention to. So he doesn't have much in Facebook. But what you just described sounds a little different than the way I understood it worked. It sounded like what you described sounded more like what LinkedIn does, which it asks you if you wish to use your contacts from your email to notify other people that you're on LinkedIn. And while you may not like that, you don't have to. It's an opt-in system. You don't have to do it. LinkedIn doesn't take names automatically. My understanding of the Facebook option was that it just does it. Now, that might be wrong understanding, but that was my understanding.
All right, let me read from the article here real quick, and then we can clear this up. The decision by the Federal Court of Justice Thursday upholds a previous ruling by a lower court against Facebook. Facebook's Find a Friend function accesses users' email address books and sends invitation to contacts who are not yet members of the social network site. The court, which also oversees competition law, said Facebook is obliged to disable the function in Germany. It's an intrusive form of marketing on behalf of Facebook using data imported by the user rather than a private message from the user to one of his email contacts, the court said.
Okay, so their distinction is that the message is coming from Facebook, not from me, for example. If I said, yes, I want to use my data, then the message, what they're saying is the courts would say that the message should come from me, not from Facebook. That strikes me, frankly, as a distinction without a difference.
Okay. Any thoughts on this, Alan? I know you're a big privacy freak.
Oh, not really.
Okay. He's not really a big privacy freak.
My bigger problem with it, Dan, is that I don't trust Facebook. You know, The LinkedIn one, I have to opt in to send everybody in my Google contacts list. I'd have to opt in on LinkedIn to say, please use my contacts list to send everyone I know an email asking them to join LinkedIn, which I could do. I have never done, and I will never do.
Do you use LinkedIn?
But I don't trust Facebook to do that. If I give them access to my Google Contacts accounts, I believe they will steal that data and use it for their own purposes without my permission, because they've done that sort of thing before. So I don't trust them.
I have a very dated profile on LinkedIn, and I haven't used it in years. And I think I went there a couple years ago, and I had like 168 requests to be part of someone's LinkedIn network. And don't they charge or something stupid? Like, they have gimmicks, like if you want to.
They do not necessarily charge. It depends on what level of service you're asking for from them.
Yeah,
But
see, I think I don't like that whole thing.
Pretty extensively, and I don't pay for it.
Yeah, I was not at all. I was turned off by that, and so I said, "Screw you," and I never got into it. So I think it shows me, like, I don't know, still a teacher or something. I forget.
There's a pretty good chance you just had a misunderstanding about the way it works.
It's just another thing. I mean, I was MySpace. I was just sort of stepping down from that and getting into Facebook, and now LinkedIn. I was like, this is too much. And I have my own business, so I'm not looking for a job of any kind. All right, so, all right, so there we go. And then Build is testing news delivery via Facebook Messenger. I just thought this was interesting. Is this going to become a thing now? Facebook Messenger is going to get full of commercial stuff or news, as opposed to, hey, Michael, can you do the show tonight? Messages. Hey, how you been, Michael? You know, been a while. Instead of the personal stuff we're used to, with the very occasional spam. And I don't even know, they got rid of the other box, apparently. So I don't know what happens if someone who previously would have been in the other box, like you're not a friend or even a friend of a friend, and you try to message them. But
I don't know.
I don't know where that goes. If they won't let you send it now, or what happened.
The problem with that would be similar to the way the stream has gone in Facebook, where you see content that actually interests you every 10th post that shows up, and everything in between is something else that Facebook is trying to shove down your throat with some sort of advertising intent. And it makes the system practically unusable. Like, even though the content, even when it was just showing me content before, the content was relatively drivel. But the drivel was more valuable to me than the ads that Facebook wants to show me.
Okay.
So putting that same capability into Messenger makes it frightening to even use Messenger, because I don't want to see all that ad. I don't want to see all those ads.
Yeah. Now, if it was purely opt-in,
then that's fine,
because there are people obsessed. But I don't know if that's the right place for that. But I mean, if they want to do it and people are opting into it, the more power to them. It's the first official approved way, apparently. It's the first outfit, apparently, with Facebook's blessing to use Messenger in this purpose. I find, like, sometimes it's easier to get a hold of somebody from Twitter, or via Twitter or Facebook, than via email. And certainly, I mean, nobody has a phone number anymore, at least published, usually.
Right.
I wouldn't dare try to call. I just talked to a guy. We're not Facebook friends. I don't follow him. He doesn't follow me, but he's a prominent reporter who was arrested a while back in a big national story. I'm speaking code because I don't want to say. But I didn't necessarily want to ask him how the thing's going on Twitter, because then it'd be public. I guess I could have DM'd him. But I just sent him a message on Facebook, and he replied within an hour, told me the status.
So you were able to send him a message even though you weren't linked to him in some way?
And I think it was to his page. He had a page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's his business. Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, that's public also, right? Sort of public.
Yeah, I was
I
just
mean, anybody who's
surprised. I didn't follow his page. We aren't Facebook friends. We may have friends of friends. I don't know, because I know a lot of DC reporters at his newspaper, and maybe
right.
a friend of a friend. And I don't know why it went through. I was surprised, but I figured, what the
Yeah,
hell?
I don't exactly know how that works either because I don't follow the structure of Facebook very much anymore. But
Also, I see Anthony Clouser is with us. If he wants to talk or if he's frozen, I don't know. But I don't have any video. I just have Anthony. What's
No,
up?
I'm here. I'm just a very quiet person.
Some things never
hey, Anthony,
change.
nice to see you again, sort of.
Yeah, Anthony, we miss you. So tell us, Anthony, any thoughts about anything we've talked about thus far, or are you smoking weed, or what's going on?
Wait, what? You were cutting out something about weed?
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I was going to join last week, but I don't know, something came up or whatever. So,
Okay.
you got to show up once every year.
Yeah, your annual visit. Nice. All right. So anyway, that happened. Al Jazeera America is going to cease operations. So Al Jazeera is owned by the royal family of Qatar and in Doha. Doha or Doha? Michael would know.
Doha, I think it is.
And
And
yeah,
Al Gore.
and its main competitor is Al Arabia, I guess. They're not a state. They're a regional network, right? They do all the Arab-speaking countries, like
Right.
Arabia. It's not like the Syrian state television or the Saudi state television. It's a regional network. It's one of the CNNs of that region. They were criticized and accused. They were showing. I forget the details. People in the U.S. were saying that they were on Al Qaeda's side during the Iraq War or something because they were showing when we bombed. They bombed a school, and we would say no, it was a munitions dump or whatever the hell it was. And then they were largely praised for their coverage during the Arab Spring, the uprising in Egypt and in Tunis. So they decided they had Al Jazeera English, they still do, which was fairly boring. It was kind of like late night PBS, but not as good, if you can imagine something that boring. And so, but when all hell was breaking loose in the Middle East, they were great because they were there. They knew they spoke the language. They knew they had the contacts. When the whole thing against the uprising in Egypt happened, they had the best coverage. Especially
Right.
initially, they have the best coverage, right? Then CNN, parachutes in. So then they decided they bought Al Gore's network, Current TV, his cable channel. There was a lot of controversy. I think, was it Time Warner or Cablevision said they weren't going to carry him, and they dumped the channel. And then there was like pulling of hair, gnashing of teeth, and to get the carriage or to maintain it, the contracts required that they stop streaming Al Jazeera English in the United States. So we lost the good channel that you could get online for free, and got this cable channel that was very Americanized. They hired a bunch of Americans. They had hundreds of jobs listed, like 600 jobs at one point for everything: managing editor, city desk, everything, camera operators, reporters, producers, you name it. And then this was only a couple years ago, and now, possibly feeling the pressure of the reduction in oil prices, they're pulling the plug. They're shutting the thing down in April, and they're laying everybody off, and it's going to
Wow.
go away. And they say, I guess we're going to get Al Jazeera English back. So it's going to be just like before they started. It's like they never existed. I feel sorry for the folks who worked there,
Yeah.
but they were not without controversy. I think the main thing is the content was boring, and they should never have used that name and expected to get a single Fox News viewer to watch anything with Al Jazeera in it. They should have come up with a new name to market to
Not
the
even-
U.S.
Not even just Fox News viewers, I think.
Just from a PR, you know, Coca-Cola and McDonald's can get away with using their name because people like those
Right.
things, right? But right now, for example, would you want to brand something as being a Trump thing if it was a business that was going to be located in a Muslim country? That might be unwise to use that brand right now.
Right.
So I think for them to use the Al Jazeera brand, even though it may be an unfair dig, so there.
I think it's clear that they did not anticipate the stupidity of the American viewer.
Well, I mean, the news market is very competitive, anyways, right? I mean, you know, you got your CNNs, you got Fox Business, CNBC, and MSNBC. I mean, and that's not even talking about the over-the-air news channels.
And I'm really impressed, Anthony. You didn't mention one quality news organization in that entire list.
I don't think there is a quality news organization, right?
Oh, I think there is. BBC and Al Jazeera.
BBC.
Al Jazeera, I mean, you know, Dan, you know, talked about how much it was criticized. Al Jazeera worldwide is considered fairly reputable and fairly independent of its funding source. Same as BBC. Whereas all of the ones that Anthony listed are not very independent of their funding sources.
Well, American. So.
I was very surprised. Like I said, I really enjoyed during the Arab Spring. I enjoyed watching Al Jazeera English because they had some of the best coverage, and I was pleasantly surprised at how unbiased they were. I really didn't know what their bias was. I had no idea, which is a good thing. Like Shepard Smith on Fox News. Say what you want about Fox News, but Shepard Smith and Brett Baer are pretty down the road, straight news. I have no clue. In fact, I think Shepard Smith is probably a liberal. Brett Baer, I think, is probably a conservative, but I'm not sure about either.
You think Shepard Smith is a liberal?
I mean, I think he's pretty liberal, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I like to watch CNN just because I don't know why I like to watch CNN, but I like to watch CNN and some of these people that I watch every single day because, you know, it's the news. I mean, sometimes I just have to shut it off because it's just so over the top, you know, politically leaning.
And
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to report the news, you should have at least a few shows where they're reporting the news instead of giving their opinions. And it seems like, you know, everything on Fox and everything on CNN, they're not giving you the news, they're giving you their opinions.
Well, Anthony, you need to listen to BBC World Service.
Well, they also do the same thing, though. They'll have talking heads up there, and some of them are clueless.
Some of them are, and BBC does present its perspective on things at times, but when it does so, it's far more obvious that it's doing so, and it also does get a fairly diverse set of perspectives on things. Not we have somebody saying A, therefore we have to also find somebody saying not A. They are much more nuanced.
I find if I want actual news, I have the CNN. I have the CNN Go app on my phone, or the CNN app on my phone. You can watch either CNN International, or the awful headline news, HNL, whatever the hell it is, that terrible channel that they've destroyed. And so I'll listen to it when I'm driving sometimes. But anyway, if you want actual news, go to CNN International, where they have actual news and not just, you know, repeating the same thing. News, by definition, should be new, right? Oh, yes. I just saw your message, Alan. That's funny. Anyway, all right, so, all right, there we go. But to defend Fox, and I have good friends at CNN and at Fox. One of my former students is a producer at CNN, and I have friends at Fox News and at Fox 5. And I can tell you that the talking heads at night and the morning show are very partisan. Um, and the news in the middle is pretty good. I mean, I think Shepard Smith, Brett Baer, um, uh, what's his face, Wolf, are pretty straight news. They're not partisan at all, in my opinion.
Who's the black guy that CNN has at night? Anderson Cooper was good.
Don Lemon. I like
yes,
Don Lemon, and I like
he's really
Anderson
good.
Cooper. Yeah, and I mistakenly just put Wolf on Fox. Obviously, he's not on Fox, but I think they're pretty straight. If you want to see some really interesting stuff, I was curious. I was watching Wolf because he is so smooth, and I was like, I wonder if he's really was that good when he started. Because like cooks, you know, everyone's like, man, Grandma could really cook. But if you ask Grandpa, Grandma was probably a crappy cook when they first got married, and she got really good over the years, right? But I was wondering, is Wolf always that smooth when he was younger? So I looked for some old videos of him. He used to be, I think it was the Jerusalem Post or some newspaper, but he was more like an advocate, and he was representing something, I forget, about whether defending Israel or something, and he was like 25 or something, and he still had like a different beard and more, you know, wasn't as gray, but he was really good even then. So that's a really, if I ever find on YouTube, I'll try to share it. But it's really, if you look for old stuff when he was really smooth talker. So they really got he can sit there and they say, okay, I need you to fill 6 hours with bullshit, you know, just say the same thing over and over again. You have 3 paragraphs, snippets of information. I need you to fill 6 hours with that, phrasing it differently each time. And he can do that with a straight face. Good for him. All right, next is, and I think we should have more media options, not fewer. I don't think it's because we have too many. Al Jazeera was outnumbered. There was a time when CNN was dominant, and when Fox News Channel came along, Fox News couldn't get carriage. They had to pay the cable networks to get carriage. Instead of being paid, they had to pay the cable companies to carry them. But they had Roger Ailes, who
Well,
used to be
and
with
honestly,
CNBC.
that's what everyone's doing today, anyways. Is an echo, but that's what everyone's doing even today. They're just doing it in a different way. They're not paying the cable companies directly, but they're buying, you know, existing channels.
But you still got to have the
best
content.
example I think is when G4 bought Tech TV. You know, they went from being on, you know, like no cable channels to, you know, being on all of the just about all of the major companies. So,
but
you
they were
still have to
losing
pay
money
the-
though. They were a niche broadcaster. I think Leo said that he gets, I don't know, like I forget if he gets 200,000 or 400,000 downloads for his flagship show This Week in Tech. I think he said that that's far more than Tech TV ever had in prime time. It was not a big. I mean, if it was a big moneymaker, they wouldn't have sold. It was a niche appeal show or channel. And it's hard to come up with content that people watch. I think somebody was talking about, one of the hosts said, you know, it's really hard to get 1 million people to watch what you're doing. It's really, really difficult. And some of these, like MSNBC, might have like 50,000 total viewers in a primetime show. I mean, just really low. I've had YouTube videos that have had, you know, far more than that. And I just, we see HuffPo Live, they're closing, or they're saying that we're not going to broadcast live all the time anymore. We'll be going on the air when events warrant. In other words, they're never going to see that again. It's hard to come up with content. It's easy to come up with garbage commodity content, and you used to be able to get away with that. But now there's lots of competition. Now you're competing with House of Cards. You're competing with all of the digital options out there. the CBSN, I mean, they run 60 Minutes at 10 o'clock on Sunday night at 10 Eastern, so 2 hours after it's supposed to run, 3. They run 60 Minutes commercial free online. You're competing with that. You're competing with a free legal run of 60 Minutes. Who's going to watch your Hangout or HuffPo Live, or even MSNBC? How are you going to compete with 60 Minutes?
Well, and the other thing is you're competing against people that are. It doesn't cost them anything to produce content. It might be garbage content, but it doesn't cost all these YouTubers with garbage content to produce content, but they're still getting eyeballs. Some of them.
Yeah, I saw like today. I was looking on Facebook.
When you take one person with like 10 views, and then you multiply that one person by I don't know. I'll just make up a number, but 500,000 people making content. That's a lot of time that's being taken up.
It gets divided up across all those sources, or all those sources of content.
You could say every minute you're spending watching. Like today, I watched a video of a leopard leaping into a river and snagging an alligator or crocodile. I couldn't tell the difference. I think one has a pointed, one has a rectangular snout. But it was pretty fast-paced video. And then another one was a cute cheetah cub or baby or whatever the hell you call it, kitten, playing with a dog, puppy. And they were like best of friends. I mean, what's not to like, right? So I could have been watching CNN or Fox News at that time. But typically when you watch those things, it's not at a point where you would be watching. You have a few minutes in a waiting room. You're on the can, you're about to go to sleep, and you're looking for something just light and fluffy and a quick video or just your Facebook feed, and you see it. So it's really not competing with CNN because you're not going to get into CNN at that time anyway. I don't know. But if we can figure this out, we'll be rich because everyone's trying to figure it out, and they're spending a whole lot of money, and it's going right down the shitter. All right, next, Netflix is cracking down on VPNs and proxies. I don't know. I've never used a VPN. I know that's a virtual private network. I guess you can mask your IP number, that sort of thing. I'm not sure. I don't want to get in trouble here and say the wrong thing and look like an idiot. So Alan and Anthony and Mike, I guess you guys, Alan, tell me, is this, what are they doing, and is it going to work, or are smart guys like Gerwin and Moritz within 3 days going to have a way around this? And is this all just PR?
I'm a little surprised to see if it's actually going to work. I mean, the basic way to do this is to detect, figure out where the VPN endpoints are and just block connections from them. I don't know how else they're going to do it, and that's going to be notoriously bad. So I don't know. I think they're trying to do something that I think will be incredibly difficult to actually pull off correctly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought initially.
Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I use a VPN now to get to U.S. programming on Netflix from here in Germany. And it's the only way. And I didn't do it originally, but I ended up deciding that the content that Netflix was offering me in Germany just wasn't sufficient for my viewing needs. So I ended up buying a VPN service in the U.S. that would give me an address in the U.S. And so that's how I use it. I start the VPN, and then I can get access to all the content that's streamed in the U.S. The system then thinks I'm in the U.S. and gives me access to that content. Frankly, I think it's kind of crazy, because if I've paid for my subscription in U.S. dollars as a U.S. subscriber, why should it matter to them where I am in the world if I'm consuming the content that I'm authorized to view?
Right, and I don't think that they necessarily care about Americans that are abroad for a relatively short period of time, a couple months. I think it's more the Americans that are trying to get the Canadian feeds or the United Kingdom feeds. I think that's what they're primarily going after.
Europeans, the Europeans that are trying to get the American feeds, and they don't have the license to distribute it into those countries.
Well, that's the problem. It isn't so much that Netflix cares one way or the other. It's that the people who are providing the content to Netflix care.
Correct.
And so Netflix, I think, has to at least pretend to do something about it.
That's what I was getting at, Alan, with the way I phrased the question, because remember, they just announced they're going into 130 new countries. And so they have to, I'm sure there's all sorts of rights issues. People are freaking out because they'll sell, like they sold, like Downton Abbey was sold to I think ITN or whatever in the UK, and then it airs here later. So BBC paid for the rights, or the PBS did, paid for the US rights. I'm sure that whatever in Australia has paid separately for rights, and someone in India has paid for rights, and China, it's and on down the line, and so that's how they make their money. And they don't want, they're terrified that, like House of Cards will be sold. Netflix doesn't own it; they own the rights for a period of time, and then it will be on other outlets. And so they want to be able to monetize that long term. And so I think this is more like, well, we're really cracking down when really they're, I mean, if the NSA couldn't keep Edward Snowden from taking stuff out of, I don't see Netflix preventing a 14-year-old really smart kid from, being able to watch his show.
Well, and that was my initial thought, but when an American account, that's paid with an American credit card starts, accessing both American, the U.S., content, and then they're accessing the Canadian content, and then all of a sudden they're accessing the United Kingdom content, Netflix is going to figure out pretty quickly that, this account that's accessing multiple, localizations, those accounts are going to get shut down real quick. Now, if you have an American, credit card and you're exclusively accessing United Kingdom content, they're probably not going to catch you. But as soon as you start hitting, 2 or more localizations consistently, they're going to catch that real quick.
And this is not new. DVDs have region codes. So, like, I think a DVD in China cannot be played here, and vice versa on a U.S. DVD player. And books are the same way. You cannot buy the U.S. version of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the U.K. And we cannot buy Harry Potter and the Philosopher.
Buy the U.S. version when they messed it up.
I would love to have the Philosopher's Stone version with the original wonderful British idiomatic nuances and phrasings and dialect that she used, but I'm not allowed to buy it. I could buy it used on eBay, but I could not choose that version on my Kindle or to purchase the physical book from Amazon. They can't sell it to me.
You have to go to Notting Hill, I guess, and buy a copy.
Absolutely. All right, so companies have the right to monitor their workers' online private messages. A court has ruled. This is in Europe. This is not at all surprising. This the case I remember in the U.S. years ago was, I guess, the company email, and some guy sued or something. And basically anything you do on an employer's computer or computer network, they can monitor. It's their property. Just like if a visitor came in and used your computer on your desk and said, "Hey, can I use your computer? Mine's broken," your neighbor or your kid. I think you could legally, if you let your neighbors use your Wi-Fi connection, you could legally eavesdrop on that, right? So this is just, but this was Yahoo Messenger. He was using Yahoo Messenger to communicate with clients and conduct business, and also using it to talk to his fiance and others about a number of things, including his sexual habits. And so he sued or brought some sort of action, and Europe ruled correctly that, if you're going to use your employer's computer, then he can monitor that. Anything on this? This seems kind of obvious.
Yeah, but it's worth noting that the headline is completely incorrect. WhatsApp is a mobile app, not a desktop app, and the ruling applied to using the corporate computer system.
If you used Wi-Fi, if you didn't have mobile data, if you used the employer's Wi-Fi, could they?
Also, WhatsApp has a web interface, so you can do web.whatsapp.com and see.
Do they have a
all
web
your
interface now?
messages.
Okay, because they didn't used to.
Yeah.
Is it
although
encrypted?
honestly, I'd be
works
somewhat.
great.
I find it interesting that that the article said they had transcripts of the conversation, which tells me that Yahoo doesn't encrypt the message traffic, which I find shocking.
If
No response from anyone. Okay, next
if
subject.
it was if it was HTTPS or encrypted, the employer could not monitor, correct?
Well, they couldn't monitor the communication channel itself. I suppose they could do screen grabs.
Okay. Who has that kind of time? They must have been. They must have had a hard on to get this guy. You know. Anyway. All right. Next is China's Haier nears a deal to buy GE appliance business. I don't know why I put this in. It's just kind of like sad. GE, it's over a century. I know, like when you go to Costco and they have all the different microwaves, I found that the GE ones were always the best. I have one. I also have I've purchased 2 Haier window air conditioning units in my office, and they sound like a freight train, but you're freezing. They really work well, but they're kind of shoddily made in ways, but they work, and they're cheap, and they're all over Walmart. But and now I just get cheap. If I need a window unit, I get a cheap one because they only last so long, and then you throw them away because you can't get them fixed anymore. So I don't know why they were selling it. They tried to sell it, I think, in 02 or something, or 04, before the stock market crashed, and then they tried to sell it to Electrolux, but they felt that was viewed as anti-competitive because it'd be too big and would harm competition in stoves and other things. And so Haier's a bit player. I think they sell a lot of units, but they just do window air conditioning and something else, little fridges. And so this is a way that they can purchase their way into a bigger market share. And so this will likely meet regulatory approval. It's like
they're going to be a huge player in the appliance business now.
So if Trump's worth $10 billion, he literally is worth 2.5 times what General Electric's appliance business is worth. That's a lot. Not that I didn't think $10 billion was a lot of money, but I'm surprised it's only worth $4 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I mean, like Walmart's worth what, like I'm kind of guesstimating. I think it was like $230 something billion. So $10 billion's a good chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got me checking. Walmart's market cap is $201 billion.
Yeah, so
Second only to Wegmans market cap. Just kidding.
they're a top 50 private company. So
Are they?
See there?
yep.
Hershey's is private. Nobody knows how much they make. All right. Anyway, so any thoughts on that, Alan? Are you a big GE lover?
Not since they poisoned the Hudson River, no.
It's just sad that all these, major, iconic, whether you like them or not, it's just sad that all these iconic American companies are being sold off to foreign, companies.
All right, and then I'm not sure. I guess they're selling it because the new head of GE wants to focus on their higher end stuff like jet engines and.
Well, hasn't GE been, shedding parts of the company for like decades and decades now?
Let's remember what the most profitable part of GE has been for several decades now, and that is their finance division.
GE Finance. Yep.
Okay, so they're not making anything on all of this other stuff anyway.
Where were they making
They make money
the
in the
things?
other areas, but not nearly as much as finance.
Were they making the microwaves and stuff in the U.S. or? I guess in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, they make.
I mean, isn't it this?
Kentucky, for sure.
Isn't it the same thing with Sony? Like the biggest business is, I want to say it's banking, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's certainly not, the consumer facing products.
I don't know. It's just sad because this is. I mean, we're talking. This is the grandchild of Edison Electric. This is the original electric company, and they're diversifying, or they're not, or whatever. And I guess this is a way for a Chinese company to buy shelf space in every store, and they can make it cheaper than it can be made in Kentucky. Like when they bought the meat company, the big sausage maker in the United States. I forget the name. A Chinese
I'll
company.
tell you what, Yahoo needs to do what GE's been doing and just diversify everything. Just get rid of everything.
Yahoo's on borrowed time, and they've earned it because they suck. Okay, so next is baby carrots. I posted a story in the Washington Post. A lot of people didn't know that there isn't such a thing as a baby carrot, or that what you buy.
No, Dan, stop. Now you're spreading this information. There are such things as baby carrots.
But that's not what's in the bag. That's what I was getting ready to say.
Well, that's because the bags don't say they sell baby carrots. They say they sell baby cut carrots.
Well, do they say that?
Yes, they do.
Did you really go and check? Anthony may be able to.
I checked at my local supermarket today just to be absolutely sure, but I have a bag of them in my refrigerator right now.
Well, that's one brand. Okay, here we go. There's a baby cut.
They say baby cut carrots, Dan.
That one says
I
baby
mean,
cut.
do we seriously need to put baby cut carrots on a bag, and emphasize cut? Because we're not putting matchstick cut carrot on a bag. At least I don't think we are.
Here's
No, they all
one that
say
says
matchstick
baby.
carrots.
Here's one that says baby carrots. It says classic cut and peeled. It doesn't say baby cut carrots.
But
is
classic,
the
what was that next word, Dan?
It says in big words baby carrots, and then under that in green it says classic cut and peeled.
Cut.
Yeah, but you're being disingenuous. You're like a.
No, you're being disingenuous. It's clear. It says it's cut.
Here's one that says cut and peeled baby carrots, and the biggest word is baby. I think clearly some are. Here's another one, baby carrots. All these are organic peeled carrots. Anyway,
yet to-
so
Dan, did you find this post on Facebook? I mean, seriously, who cares?
no,
Does it
actually
change
it was in
something?
the Washington Post.
The Washington Post has nothing better to cover these days?
It was their top story. It was their top. I was reading something actually important, and this was like our top trending stories or whatever. It was above a Trump story, for Christ's sakes. So it's obviously it's big.
Oh, okay. It is more important than Trump. I'll grant that. But
Anyway, a lot of people. It was an
I'll
interesting
tell you
story.
what, something that I'm starting to see in our stores is, and I forget the exact phrasing that they put, but because in order to be certified organic, you need to have the crop organic for 3 years. So really, it's already organic. They're using organic practices, but it just hasn't been 3 years. So now basically they're saying, oh, well, we're not organic yet, but in 3 years, this same exact product will be organic. So
It's
they're kind
a
of, going nudge, this is organic, even though we can't say it is.
It's a scam. Organic
And I think
is a
you only have to
scam.
be 75% organic to be organic.
Yeah, and
which
there are plenty of
makes
people.
no
that,
sense to me.
and it's not pesticides on organic bullshit. There's like a bunch of we've been through all this. Anyway, so the story is that baby carrot that they used to only about 50% of the carrots were usable that they would produce. I think less than 50% because they're a fairly ugly vegetable anyway, but they would be gangly and all just not suitable in stores. And so the guy would, I don't know what they did with them. I don't know what you would use ugly carrots for. And so just like, I guess maybe like tater tots, I mean, that was, what do we do with this waste product we're throwing away? And they figured, well, let's package it and call it something. And people buy tater tots now. That's what that is. It's a way to get rid of the waste. But So the guy said, well, what if we took the gangly, ugly carrot that we can't sell to the grocery store and we peel it and we make it into this? And so the guy, and I think this was only like in the 80s, he sent his shipment to the grocery store with one bag of these baby cut carrots. And he said, hey, tell me what you think of these. And the grocery store called him back and said, hey, we only want to buy those from now on. We don't want the regular carrots. And so it was born. And then, of course, everyone competed or copied him. I just thought it was a fun little history story. And then all these people were like, oh, my God, I didn't know that these weren't just baby. I was like, didn't you notice that they're all peeled in exactly the same shape?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like chicken wings, you know, every once in a while, and, you know, the history of food, a company will realize that they can sell something that, you know, previously was worthless. Like chicken wings, the wings were worthless, and then someone, you know, in Buffalo started cooking them up, and now they're the most expensive part of the chicken. They went from being the cheapest to the most expensive.
Interesting. Yeah, and like feet, chicken feet. We sell a lot of chicken feet in Virginia to China. We raise a lot of chickens here. So, all right. So we're all excited about the history of baby carrots, baby cut carrots. Excuse me. So let me do how was your week? Let me start with Anthony. Anthony, I saw a video that was in Rochester. I guess the State Fair of New York. Their fairgrounds is in Rochester, and I saw a video with your governor.
Wait a minute, hold on. No, well, first of all, can you hear me? Because
yeah,
like,
you're loud.
just cutting in and out.
I don't know.
So you can hear me?
I can hear you
We
fine.
hear you fine, Anthony. Dan is a little bit soft.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah.
But
first of all,
go ahead.
The New York State the New York State Fairgrounds are not in Rochester. They're in Syracuse, or they're in a suburb of Syracuse.
Okay. I was curious. I was wondering if Anthony went there for this. So I got those cities messed up. Kodak is. I saw Rochester. That's your Kodak, right?
Yeah, Kodak, Xerox, Wegmans.
Yeah.
University of Rochester. Those are the big guys.
Okay.
Paychecks too.
Ajax?
Paychecks.
Paychecks. The company Paychecks?
It's a company, Dan.
What do they make?
Well, I'll give you one guess.
How was your week, Anthony?
It was good, especially today. I was going to go buy some beer, and I walked past and I saw Budweiser every year they make a limited edition wooden crate with 36 packs of beer in it and two nice glasses in it. So I have like literally never had a Budweiser in my life, but they go for a decent penny on eBay. So I might drink it, or I might sell it, or I don't know what to do with it.
The case, you mean?
Yeah, the case, because it's it's made out of wood,
Oh, like
so
a wooden
it's nice,
crate.
Yeah, like a wooden crate. So plus there's the two glass glasses in it. So
Do you know why we don't use wooden barrels anymore, like they used to?
because it's cheaper to use the steel ones
Someone invented
and more
cardboard.
clean.
Someone invented cardboard. So we don't use wooden.
Okay, yeah. All right.
That's why they don't use wood anymore. Awesome. Alan, how was your week?
My week was pretty good. I spent most of it at Google's Ubiquity Developer Summit. Learned a little bit about some of the new products that Google is working on in that field. So that was pretty fun. Met up with some people that I got to talk to. Some of whom I've met before, some of whom I haven't. So overall, that was a pretty good meeting, pretty good conference.
Awesome. Mine was good. I was saddened to hear about Alan Rickman, who played Severus Snape, dying. he was a great actor. He was in the Die Hard. He was the villain, and he really did a great mean Severus Snape in the Harry Potter series, in the movies. And then also David Bowie, who he had a lot of music I didn't care for, but the stuff like the early 80s stuff I really like, Modern Love and Changes and Let's Dance. It was really good. If you, the guy, I forget his name, and I watched him, who was the producer for that album in like 82 or 84, and he tells the story of Let's Dance, and Bowie just had this one lick. He said, "This sounds good," and the guy did the arrangement for it, came back and like totally changed it, and it was his first #1, I think. But he tells this really interesting story, and he plays the guitar. It's the guy he was a producer. He also played the guitar for he's still active, very active. What's the duo from Belgium that wears masks that just had a hit with Pharrell singing? They're like techno Euro. Oh my God, I'm so out of it. Shoot, I'm gonna find it real quick.
Really?
Anyway, it's a good video. Nile Rodgers, Nile, like Nile River, like the Nile River, Rodgers. Look for a video on YouTube. Nile Rodgers talking about Let's Dance. He's told it many times, but it's a great story in like 4 or 5 minutes. Anyway, that was good, and thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. We're here every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Thanks to Mike and his friend whose name escapes me. Thanks to Anthony and Alan, as always. Anyway, we'll see you every Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. For another
I just want to point out we had a comment from Cy regarding
cardboard.
Wood. He points out that that you can't age bourbon in cardboard.
I'm talking about storage, like moving product from A to B, not aging.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about wooden barrels, not wooden crates.
Oh no,
That's
not for
storage,
aging.
Dan.
No, they
That's
still use
delivery. Storage is what you do for bourbon for a few years.
Correct. I know that. And then if they burn the wood a little bit, it'll introduce flavors. So anyway,
have a good night.
Yep. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. Peace out. See you next week, Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific.